joined Sarah's Grand Adventures. The last 3 episodes, we have talked about travel and international travel, and today we are taking it a little more local. So another thing that I love that I have roped into Sarah's Grand Adventures is local adventures. So I love hiking, I love getting out into nature, and today I'm doing a little introduction on planning a hike or planning your first hike, especially if you're new. So I've got 5 great tips for you today. The first one is to decide on your aesthetic. So what do you want to see when you make it to the top? What type of terrain do you want to be hiking on? And keeping in mind the area that you live in, so you'll kind of know roughly what type of terrain and aesthetic you have. If you live in an area like me, I'm in Victoria, British Columbia, we often have different aesthetics depending on where you go. So you can have an ocean view, a mountain view, a lake view even. There are some hikes that are heavily forested, which are the ones that I really prefer. Some have a lot more open space. Depending on where you live, you might also be doing like desert hiking. So just be aware of what you have in your area and what you would like to see. So knowing that aesthetic is how you can then go and select what hike you'd like to do. Tip number 2, and I highly recommend doing this. You may think it's not necessary, and you absolutely don't have to, but especially if you're new, I recommend doing this. Download a really good trail app. From there, you can take your aesthetic and you can find trails that fit your needs, paying close attention to how long the hike is, like how many kilometers or miles, and roughly how long that will take in your day. If you're a beginner, you may not want to do a 15 to 20 kilometer hike that will take multiple hours. It might be better to start with something smaller, but it also depends on your level of fitness. But downloading this app will be great. There's a couple of apps. My favorite that I recommend is All Trails. I think All Trails gives you a really great overview. You can get recommendations. If you select the hike that you want to do, it can actually take you with just a click of a button to the starting point. So it'll Google Maps you or Apple Maps you to where All Trails, like the hike, where it wants to take you. So I highly recommend having an app. It really helps with the planning process, but it also helps when you get out there. Which leads me to tip number 3, and that is to download the map that you have chosen for offline viewing. So the thing is, when you're hiking, some trails do have cell service all the way through, but not always, especially when you start getting towards the top. You start to lose service or good service. So having that map, the ability to be able to see it and follow yourself offline, I cannot state enough how imperative this is. There have been many times where my hiking bestie and I have gotten out and we forgot to download the map offline, and then we couldn't find it and we had to just make our way to the top. And if you're on a trail that has just one trail, that's not so bad. But when you go on a hike that has multiple different options, this can make a big difference because you might accidentally go on a harder trail than you would like. So I highly recommend downloading it offline. Whatever app you choose, you may have to pay for the premium version if you want it offline, but honestly, like, having that map downloaded just in case you lose cell service, especially if you're a beginner, is incredibly important. Tip number 4, and this is one of the most fun ones, is invite your friends. You can hike on your own, and a lot of people really do love doing that, but especially when you're just getting into it, find a group of people who are just as motivated as you to get out onto the trail and hike. Like, hiking on your own, you definitely get to be in the moment, be present. You get to see all the beautiful sights, but when you hike with friends, the memories that you make and what you remember from the hike are just so much better. You end up laughing the entire way. if you're new and you haven't done it before, it might actually increase your enjoyment of hiking itself. And for someone like me, I tend to be quite anxious. So I prefer to hike with friends, especially if I'm in an area where I know there are bears or cougars or other kinds of wildlife, because if you're loud enough, and let's say you're talking the entire way, you're laughing, you might be listening to music with your friends, they tend to stay away. They don't like that noise. They don't want to come near you. So that's why I love hiking with friends. But it's also so much fun. Like, there's something about getting to the top and you have this like sense that you did something together, you accomplished something together. And yeah, I just think hiking is way more fun with friends. And tip number 5, grab your favorite snacks and pack your bag. So there are a few things that I bring to every hike, even if it's smaller. So I have 2 bags, depending on the size of the hike. So I have a smaller bag if I'm just doing quick little jaunts on an easy trail. And I have a bigger bag if I'm going somewhere where I know I'm going to be having lunch or I potentially need a change of clothes. So if I'm packing just the small one, water is always a must. Even if it is not a hot day, bring water, because you can definitely get dehydrated on a chilly, rainy day. So water is always a must, no matter where and when you're going or how long. You can be hiking for 3 kilometers and you'll still need water. So water comes in either bag. So in the small bag, water will come in both bags. I also bring a first aid kit. I have one that's hiking specific. You don't necessarily need that, but as long as you have like a small first aid kit that you can bring with you, because you never know what can happen. Personally, myself and my best hiking buddy, we are not the most graceful on the trail. We tend to be very, very clumsy. We fall a lot. Injuries have happened. You do not want to make it somewhere and not have the tools to help. We were hiking this one mountain once. It was the end of May, so we were not at all prepared for what we experienced on the mountain. It ended up there being a lot of snow. We knew it would be cold because it was a big mountain, but we were not expecting snow, which we should have. So on the way back down, there was one part where like there was no snow. It was kind of in between snow, and it was very rocky. It was wet. My friend had her dog on her back because he was tired. We didn't have booties for him. So she was carrying, this 13 to 15 pound dog. So I'm in front and I slipped. And what I ended up doing, so I was walking forward and straight down the mountain, and I slipped and I ended up flipping over so that I was face down on the rocks, and I just kept slipping because it was wet. So I had to grab the rocks and stop myself from slipping. But then I knew like I had hit my head and I had hit my knee and I had hit my arm and all these kinds of things. So I sort of froze, and I ended up just like lying there for a minute trying to figure out what had hurt the most. Of course, my friend is like losing her mind, but she can't come any faster because she's got a dog on her back. In that instance, like I knew that if I needed, like we had the first aid kit, and I did kind of take care of my hands a little bit and, check my head. But I did not look at my legs or my knees until we got back to the car, because I knew if I did, I was not going to make it down. But luckily we had the first aid kit with us, so when we made it back to the car, I was able to take care of a fairly good size injury, which I still now have scars from. I mean, if you haven't gotten scars from a hard fall like that, was it even worth it? No. Anyway, so water, first aid kit are an absolute must. No matter the size of the hike, I also bring snacks with me. So for blood sugar purposes, I like to have like those go-go squeezes, those little like applesauce packs, because they give you a nice little sugar kick when you're heading up the mountain. So I just always have those on hand. But trail mix is always a really good snack. Just straight up nuts are a really good snack. I love cashews the most because they give you a good amount of vitamins and some protein and a little bit of fats when you're heading up there. But yeah, just regular trail mix is also great. Some kind of bar, granola bars, protein bars, something like that. Something that's going to give you a nice little nutritional kick. You can also bring other kinds of snacks, you know, the sugary kinds of snacks if you really want, because that's just for fun. But when I'm hiking, especially on bigger hikes, I prefer to have something that's nutritionally packed and easy to munch as I'm walking. Another thing that I always pack, if I'm doing something bigger and I have the bigger pack, we might be staying for lunch. We often will make either miso soup or some kind of Mr. Noodles because we bring the jet boil to be able to make something at the top. Those are just really easy to pack. You know, I do sometimes bring perishables like fruit and vegetables, but I also want to make sure that I am not making the pack overly heavy. So something dehydrated that we can cook up at the top is preferable. In the big pack, I also make sure, even if it is a completely sunny day, I always bring a rain jacket, because from the bottom of the mountain to the top of the mountain, you have no idea if the weather is going to stay the same. Just like I was mentioning with the surprise snow that we had, like we hadn't expected, luckily we had brought thicker jackets. I still brought a rain jacket there that I could throw over top if needed, but luckily we were prepared with warmer clothes because we knew it was going to be chilly. You can also bring rain pants if you know that it's a wet day. I don't bring rain pants if it's sunny, but I do bring a rain jacket all the time. Something else, you know, I like to bring like a little toiletries kit, so I might bring some hand sanitizer or hand wipes. Even if I'm not touching a lot of things on the way up, chances are I've still come in contact with something. So if I'm going to eat at the top, I always want to make sure that I have clean hands. I also bring tissues and Tylenol and an allergy pill in that pack as well. In the little pack and the big pack, I bring just like a little Ziploc bag that I can put garbage or compost into if I need, and then I'll bring it home, dispose of what's in it, and then wash the Ziploc bag and use it again. In the big pack, we also have flagging tape. We've used it before on bigger hikes where the path wasn't super clear, so we'll actually go and put little flags on certain trees so that we can remember what trees that we have passed. That's a really helpful one. I always have a hat and a toque in the bag. They just remain there. They're the hiking ones. Super handy if you don't know what the weather is. Just like on that hike with the surprise snow, I was very lucky to have a toque in my bag. You can also bring toilet paper if you know that there isn't going to be any washrooms. A lot of mountains don't have washrooms along the way. They may have like a washroom at the bottom, but toilet paper is also a great one to have. An extra pair of socks is also really handy. You never know, like if the mountain or the trail is really muddy or you know it's swampy. I've done a couple of hikes where the trail is essentially just all swamp, and so by the time I make it back to the car when we're finished, I'm not interested in staying in my wet soggy socks. So I'll actually put a clean pair of socks on and change my shoes. There's lots of other things that you can pack in your bag. I highly recommend looking up different articles before you get going, but you can never be too prepared, especially if you're new, because the worst thing that you would want to do is to get out onto the trail, not be prepared, and end up having not a great time. If you're not prepared and the hike ends up being harder, you don't have everything that you need, that can actually ruin your hiking experience going forward, and you may not give hiking the chance that it deserves. So make sure that you're prepared. Find a great hike that is highly recommended. Bring your friends. Make sure you look at hikes where the view is worth it. I have done hikes before that were really hard, and then you make it to the top and you're like, it's just a lukewarm view. So make sure that when you look at your trail app that you actually go through and look at the pictures, because people will upload pictures of the trail itself and of the view, like right onto the app. They'll rate it. I also like to go through the ratings because the app itself may not have an accurate rating, but if you go and look at the reviews, you can get yourself more prepared. So make sure you know what you're getting into. Prepare, and have a fabulous adventure on your first hikes, or you might have already done a few, and you might want to just have some extra tips. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this next episode of Sarah's Grand Adventures. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. You can share the channel with your friends if you particularly like it. And again, my goal is to be doing these every week. So every Friday, I would like to have a YouTube video come out in either about travel or adventure, local, all kinds of things. Remember, I also do write a blog, and often the blogs will be similar to the YouTube videos, but may have some extra stuff, extra resources. So please go ahead and check out my blog at www.sarahsgrandadventures.com/blog for the companion blog to this episode for some extra. I'll have some links in there. But anyways, I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. Thank you so much for watching.